Governor, last week you said there's a lot of stuff to do up here. Did you talk about that stuff here today and what's going to get done?
We did talk about a bunch of the stuff that's up here, and it's my hope and anticipation that over the course of the next couple of months that we will get a lot of that stuff done. And I know there's a lot of interest in many of these issues on both sides of the legislature, and some of it's in conference and a lot of it is working its way through the committee process. And like I said, I hope a lot of it gets done.
And one of those things you've said you wanted to get done is a reduction in the sales tax. Could I get a reaction from Speaker and Senate President to that idea? Is it time now to lower the sales tax at all?
I don't think our bodies are going to agree on a lowering of the sales tax. We're concerned about revenue.
Yeah, in the last couple of months, I do not see that as an issue that will become before the House.
We'll take a run at them on the sales tax holiday for the summer, though, sometime between now and the end of the year, and see if we can make any progress on that.
And how will you take that?
I guess we'll look at it very carefully, like we do everything that the governor suggests, right?
Madam
Something
President,
for us to think about.
Sorry, Madam President, why not push off the filing or pass legislation to push off the filing deadline?
We've
for
never done
residency?
that in history. And frankly, there is one person who managed to get their papers filed in time in Senator Rosenberg, former Senator Rosenberg's district. And I've talked to the senators from Western Mass. I've talked to the mayor of Northampton, and we're all in agreement that this should not be changed now.
Mr. Speaker, you're taking up the smoking age, tobacco age bill later this week.
Yes.
What was your thinking about that coming to the floor? It was kind of a surprise to some of us.
First of all, it was something which I've been thinking about for quite a while, just waiting for it to go through the process, just waiting for it to go from public health to healthcare finance to ways and means, and various committees talking about changes, perfections to it. So, quite frankly, it's been something which I think has been due for a while. I think especially now with the number of cities and towns that have already changed the age in their particular communities, makes it also more timely than ever. And bottom line, I think it's something that we should be doing.
Governor, would you have a problem with that?
Well, it depends upon which version ultimately makes it through the process. But conceptually, when you guys first started talking about it last year, we expressed support generally for the idea.
Last question.
Governor, is there a concern, I don't know if you can ask this recently, but is there a concern about a scenario under which sales tax cut goes through, gets approved by voters, the millionaire's tax, say, gets blocked by the courts or something, and that blows a $1 billion hole in the budget?
Well, look, I've said all along that my hope is that we end up finding a way to work with a number of the folks who have ballot questions pending to come up with what I would describe as sort of a grand bargain between and among all the players. And I know that there have been conversations going on with both the House and the Senate and with folks in our administration with proponents on a number of these different questions. And those conversations have been pretty productive. I do think those conversations will get more pointed as we move toward the end of the session, and also toward the point where the SJC renders some decisions on some of this stuff, because people don't really know what the playing field looks like at this point.
Is it fair to say that philosophically that you would be in favor of the sales tax cut and opposed to a tax increase?
I would like to be able to see if we can't just find some way to deal with all of these questions. Some of them have some very legitimate and positive elements to them, and some of them have some very negative elements to them. And I think it's important that we use this process here in this building to try to get this stuff resolved.
So where do things stand on the minimum wage and the family leave in terms of legislative compromise? Are either of you in?
All I can say is that last time that we had increased the minimum wage, it was my feeling that we had to also take a look in terms of the effect on businesses as well. Support the minimum wage increase, while at the same time trying to give some relief to businesses. Because what you don't want to do is to have the minimum wage increase and that you start to lose jobs. In addition to that, if you take a look at the minimum wage and you take the so-called, in our restaurant business, for instance, it's an entirely different situation. So I think that you not only have to look at the concept of increasing the minimum wage, but what effect is that going to have on employment? What effect it's going to have on businesses? And you want to make sure that you do enough on both sides so that both sides can prosper.
Thank you.
Governor, the speaker last week put out a red flag bill, sort of endorsed that. Where are you on that idea?
Well, I said before that Massachusetts is unique amongst most states in that the process to get a license to carry travels through the local police chief. And that license can be revoked if it's deemed to be appropriate to do so. And that process, for the most part, I think has served Massachusetts well if you look at all the statistics that are out there on gun violence and gun deaths and all the rest. We tend to be either the lowest or one of the three or four lowest in the country, depending upon how you do the calculations. But that said, I've said several times that if people believe that there are additional elements we can do to improve on the laws we already have, we'd be happy to consider them. And this is one of those issues that's been raised, and we've had conversations with people about it. And I tend not to comment on specific legislation until it actually works its way through the process. But conceptually, as I said, if there are ways to make our gun laws better, and there were a bunch of police chiefs up here last week saying that, yep, I have the authority, but I think this process might be a better one, then those are things we should look at.
Thank you.
Thanks, Governor.
Okay.